How you doing, YouTube? Matt with Massive Beer Reviews. Back with another review. Another re-review. Another revisiting. This is one of those beers that I typically want to have multiples of. And would like to see how a beer changes over time. But I never get the chance to. But now I get to. Because I'm re-reviewing the exact same version, as far as I assume, of Pelican Brewing's Mother of All Storms. So rewind. It is late January 2018 right now. In 2016, I reviewed this. It was given to me by David, my Portland soulmate when it comes to the big barrel-aged beers. He sent me off this, and he was like, yeah, you probably should let that wait and sit a little bit. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty funny, dude. Because I'm not going to let that happen. Because you have to try all beers new. And just like a lot of these kind of big, huge barley wine-esque kind of beers, whether it be stouts, barley wines, whatever, I always say this. If you're like, how long should I wait? I'm like, you shouldn't wait. You should always try something fresh. And try to get another one, at least another one, and try it when it's aged, because you don't know how it's going to change unless you try it in multiple different kind of ages. But sometimes it's hard to get beers like that, because this tends to be a little bit of that kind of whale kind of mentality kind of beer. So I did that. I did that review with George from Massive Troll Reviews. You all know George, beloved George. And it was, we did it, I believe it was February or March of 2016. It was a 2015 bottle, and so you're talking a couple months on it, and there you go. End of story. Well, lo and behold, Chris, thank you very much, Chris of the mystery beer fame, one has been sending me up mystery beers, dropped this on me, and this is a 2015 version, so we're doing the same year. Not only are we doing the same year, I have the bottle. This is the bottle that I did with George. I still have it, and this beer was bottled on November 13th, 2015, and it has a gating code of T.0.20.5, as does the original one. So I think these are not only bottled on the same year, they're bottled on the same day, and they're probably bottled right next to each other. They come from two different sources. I don't know if that's just the other part of the coating is just like they just do one day of bottling. I don't know how that functions, but I'm doing the rare occasion beer where I get to revisit a beer, not just revisit a beer, but revisit the same exact beer. Now, I know this is going to come as quite a shock, but I actually went back and watched my old review. How about that shit? A little bit of homework on my end. Fucking world's going to crumble. Just to see, so I can refresh myself a little bit of what I thought originally. To see what's going to go on with this beer. So yeah, let's do a proper revisit, see what else is going on here. We're going to do the whole shebang like we usually do. Pelican Brew Company, Mother of All Storms, 2015 version, barrel-aged barley wine style ale, malt beverage, aged in bourbon barrels. I'm not going to read any of the stuff on back here. It just talks about, it's a English style barley wine and bourbon barrels and vanilla and toffee and caramel and all that kind of fun stuff that you typically get in those. Label-wise, I dig it. A little bit of a sticker. I wish it was screen printed because I'm a screen printing junkie, but all in all, it's pretty cool stuff. So, foil. Who doesn't like the foil? I should have got that exact same glass I drank it out of, too. Should have got George to drink it with me again. It's a beer that's meant to be shared, but, it's kind of a little occasion today, so deserving of a little bit of fancy pants beer. So, here we go. A little fancy pants beer for you all. Man, that's filled. I don't know, you probably can't see it, but that is filled, like, up to here. It's pretty kudos to those guys. Filling this thing up there. So, let's give it a pour. Hopefully we won't give it too big of a head. I mean, it's a barley wine. It's, a bit old. So you're talking about almost the exact same time reviewing it. Only 2 years later, being that it's 2018 versus 2016. So you're talking about 2 years on this bottle. And again, it's a totally separate bottle. So who knows? It could be variants from bottle to bottle, depending on what's going on. But what we do have in front of us is, a barley wine. I'm kind of impressed with the head on the thing. Usually don't expect a decent big head, especially on a barrel-aged barley wine that's a couple years old. But it's got a nice kind of, just between kind of malted malt bottle and like where I want my coffee to be color-wise. It's got this cool kind of dark to lightness going in the head, too. Creaminess that's dissipating into rockiness, and she be dark. She looks more stout than barley wine in the glass. Rich, deep, and dark. Looks like an aged barley wine, but much older than it actually is. It looks like it has several years on it already, so... see if we can get a nose on her. Pretty nice. Nothing too kind of screaming at the top of their lungs, kind of nose-wise. It's all about a rich, deep, sweet, malty kind of bourbon in there. It's all about a dark fruit. It's all about like a cherry, kind of rich, cordial cherry kind of thing, just like overly ripened. A little bit of kind of booziness to it. Not much whatsoever. There's definitely kind of barrel character floating around in there too. You're getting some soft oakiness. You're getting a nice little bit of smoky chariness. A little bit of sweet malts in there, but it's definitely kind of barrel driven. Smells like a barley wine. You know, you're getting a little bit of dark fruits. Could be coming a little bit from the barley wine. Definitely coming from that bourbon. I'm not getting a ton of like date figginess. I know we got a ton of toffee vibes out of the last one. In a nose, it's pretty much leaning just bourbon here. So let's dive in, see what she's got. It does have a nice kind of pop to it, kind of heat-wise. I didn't expect that. My other review, I kind of talked about it be warming. Kind of like, wasn't super hot, but I knew I was drinking something with a higher ABV. This seems like it has a little bit of chutzpah to it. You know what I mean? Something with a little bit of pop to it. I expected it to be a bit more rounded, a bit more kind of softer drink-wise, but I mean, based off of, you know, we change too. You got to keep that in mind when you come in and revisiting beers. You're not the same person when you come into them. This one seems a little bit hotter than what I thought originally. The bourbon and the barrels seem bigger to me too. The bourbon seems like more vibrant, more dialed up. Like you're kind of cranking up the contrast on that bourbon, that cherry portion of the bourbon. And taking it and just making it almost like a cherry syrup. Not in a synthetic way, but it just, when I think of cherry syrup, I think of kind of a cherry extract, a cherry that's more kind of pronounced than it typically is. The oak is definitely there. I'm getting this nice dryness on my tongue, but then I'm getting a soft kind of smokiness. It seems to me, based off of memory and what I watched, it has a little bit more smokiness to it. Everything here seems to be a little bit kind of jacked up, and it would have been the opposite. I would assume it would have been the opposite based off of what I talked about in that original review. The toffee thing, still there. Now, it seems by initial perception that toffee is a little bit smaller than what it used to be. I don't think that's the case. I think everything else is a little bit bigger. The toffee stayed where it's at, which would end up perceptually coming off as a toffee being a little bit smaller, but it's still like a super toffee bomb. I'm getting a little bit more. I don't think I talked a lot about kind of pruniness, raisiny pruniness. I think you're getting a little bit of more of that in the beer here. I talked about it being thin in the last time I had it, and that's not the case here. Definitely not thin, and not the thickest beer in the history of mankind. But it suffers from not. Definitely does not suffer from being thin. There's a bit, and this is probably the biggest change, and there's one in that, you know, based off of memory and based off of watching a review, the biggest change I can remember or I detect, it has this nice kind of savory thing going on in it now. It definitely has an umami kind of rich, pseudo kind of soy saucy in a good way kind of added component to it. You know, when I talked about it originally, I talked about this kind of bourbon in there. I talked about this toffee. I talked about this brown sugar. I didn't talk about the savory component. and you get that little bit extra bit of barrel in there, combined with this kind of little bit of not even a little bit, a decent helping of this kind of savory component, this kind of rich, deep, dark, meaty kind of savoriness. It just adds so much more to the beer, and I think it ends up being more complex. I think it ends up being not as viscerally enjoyable in the way that, you know what I mean, an orgasm or eating a brick of sugar or butter is delicious. More in a way that kind of a finely tuned meal, or driving in, like, you know, a really high end vehicle at a relatively, you know, non manic pace kind of gives you. It's not as, I don't want to say hair on fire, because I don't think the original one was hair on fire. It's, you know, it has a bit of reservation to it. It's hard to say that about a barrel aged barley wine, but it has a little bit more complexity, a bit more reservation, a bit more elegance. I think that's the word I'm looking for to it, that the original one just didn't have. And that's honestly, that's aging to a T for most people, or most beers. Look at me saying people, because, well, barley wines are life and life are people. But and it's the same, whether it be people, whether it be beers, whether it be cars, whatever it may be. Listen, I loved, let's put it that way, I'm going to say I like, because I'm definitely not young. I love being young. But there's things in my life now which I appreciate, and how I function and how I do things in life, that I just didn't get when I was a kid. Even though I was a pretty awesome fucking youngster, it just didn't have that kind of seasoned experience and kind of mentality that I assume I have now. I'm probably just the same person, just kind of blind to my own ignorance. But it's like that. It's like someone that grows older gracefully. Someone that car that ages beautifully. You know, a nice cheese, a good beer. We all know what I'm talking about. Some things can't be duplicated with time, and I think what we're hitting at the core of this is that kind of nice, dense, kind of complex, kind of savory thing wrapped around that nice, sweet, delicious barley wine that just ends up making this just a fantastic fucking beer. I dig it. So yeah, cut back to the chase. Way more bright red fruitiness. Cherries leading the way. There's definitely like a raisinette kind of pruning thing. Lean more pruning and raisinette-ness in there. Toffee's still there, but it's starting to kind of lose a little bit of ground. Kind of that sweetness had that nice kind of savory core to it, and just ends up being one of the best barrel aged. I want to put it outside just English barley wines. I want to add something to it. I don't know why. Because the only reason is this has something extra to it. It's an English barley wine, but there's a bit more to it than just a base English barley wine. It's markedly different than like the cognac barrel aged Thomas Hardy. Very different beers. Equally as good, but quite a bit different. So I don't want to put it in the same category as that, and I don't know how to do that. So it's just super delicious, super tasty. And it gives you everything you want from a barley wine, but in a more kind of smoky, kind of savory sense of things, as opposed to just a kind of sweeter, more date figgy kind of way. It's just cool. It's delicious. It's fantastic. I'm a lucky dude. Let's put it that way. So let's talk about it as one of the better barley wines, barrel aged or otherwise, that I've had as of late. Absolutely. Value and availability. I think it's like $16 a bottle when it comes out. So there you go. Brewery only? I don't know. I think it might hit shelves. I actually don't know about that. Leave you with if you like what we like this. If you like pretty much all the beers I've mentioned over time, whether it be a very old stock, or J.W. Lee's, or Thomas Hardy, or all the other barley wines that I've fallen in love with and fallen out of love with over the past couple of years, this is up there. I mean, from when I originally had it to reviewed it till now, it gives me little bits and pieces of difference each and every time I have it. But what it does consistently is make me happy and impress me. And that's all you really want from a beer. It's all you really want from life. To be happy. And this is happiness. And it's barley wine, so it's life. So there you go, full circle. So hopefully, you guys enjoyed the review. If you didn't, anywhere in between, down there, words and stuff and things. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, Massive Beers, all 4 of those places. If you want to check me out in the social media realm, the podcasting realm, the audio realm, the whole kind of everything else kind of realm, Beer Massive, MASSIF.com. Podcasts aplenty. That's the core of it. Brewer interviews is the core of the podcasting realm, but there's going to be a whole lot of bits and pieces, website, social medias, all that stuff. Just type in Beer Massive into the internets and find us. Or no, even better yet, go on your iTunes and Stitchers and podcasting apps and do all that and 5 stars and all that bullshit. And there you go. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a beautiful barley wine like this right now. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.